Welcome, everybody. I'm Noreen Savage, and this is Starting Out Bright. I'm so glad that you're here, and you're in for a treat because Ruth Ellis is in the house. So before we get talking with Ruth, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, who I am, but especially who I'm not. I am nobody official with Bright Line Eating, but the program has done a lot for me, and I got acquainted very simply by a friend posting on Facebook. She said that she lost 57 pounds in 1 year, and if anybody was interested, they could ask her any questions. So I quickly got over to the messenger and emailed or messaged my friend Lori, asking her what's the scoop. And she told me about a book, Bright Line Eating by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson. And in the book are mentioned 4 bright lines that you don't cross. No sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, weighed in measured portions. And when I heard all that, I was sunk, heartbroken, actually, because I already was starting a grieving process about no sugar, no flour. That's impossible. But Lori assured me it could be done, and we got together for lunch shortly after that. And she continued to tell me about this great community that is out there online with Bright Line Eating. And she suggested, one, I get the book and get in the community. And I did. I got the book, and I got into a group called We Eat Bright with Lines. It's a private group still going strong. And since then, there are many groups, including Starting Out Bright, which is associated with these Zoom chats, another private group, and many recipe groups and other specialty groups. So lots of community. But I was in that one, and I just sat and watched transformations happening before my very eyes. People losing weight, like a lot of weight, not just 10 or 20 pounds like I was doing every other month, but 50, 100, 150 pounds. And for the first time in a long time, I felt so much hope rise in me, because where I was 5'2" and 270 pounds and in a lot of pain. I was having excruciating pain in my knee, backache, snoring every night, sleep apnea. I was waking up my husband all the time with my snoring. And I knew that diabetes was right around the corner, which really made me afraid because my mother had been diabetic and I saw everything that she had gone through. So there I was, and I decided that if I lasted 1 year doing Bright Line Eating, I would do the thing that Lori did. On my 1 year anniversary, I would post on Facebook and I would help anybody I could. Well, the year came up in July 2020. I was sitting right back there in that chair wondering what I was going to post. And I felt God say to me, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could connect people, these people that you saw transform and inspire you, if you could just connect them with the ones who needed help and hope. Wouldn't that be great? It would, but we got to get somebody to tell their story. And that's where Ruth comes in. So Ruth, welcome to Starting Out Bright. I'm so glad you're here. And we had a chance to chat the other day. It was so wonderful to get to know you. And you do have a story, that is for sure. So let's get started. You want to, like how you got into Bright Line Eating, but, everybody has a different path. If you want to go back as far as you can with your, weight loss story, your weight gain story, however it began for you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. If I ever go on one of these meetings, I never turn on my video. I'm always the black box. So this is kind of exciting. And I'm really, really thrilled to be asked to tell my story. And it is a long story because it's been going on since I was probably 12, 13 years old. I started getting chubby. And I remember my mom putting me in ballet lessons. And the ballet teacher was just so frustrated with me because I just wasn't a ballet person. I was not a ballerina. And that's kind of how I started seeing myself early on. I'm the big girl. I was tall. I was 5'9" in my little high school in Southern Nevada. And there was nobody else as tall as I was, hardly at all. And I just felt big all the time, even though I wasn't really hugely overweight. I just wasn't skinny and short and little and the cheerleader kind of. I kind of went with that. I went to college in northern Utah when I graduated high school, and a couple of years later met my husband to be. And right after we started dating, he and I separated for the summer. I was going to Southern Nevada and he was going up to Idaho. And on the way home, my brother was driving our pickup. My sister was by the window. I was sitting in the middle. This was 1971. We didn't have seat belts. There were no airbags. And a drunk driver passed out while driving and went off the road and came back on and crashed into us head on, kind of from an angle where my sister was sitting, was smashed in the most. And she died along with the 4 people in the other car in that accident.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was a real shocker trauma for me because she was like my very best friend in the whole
Oh my
world. And I
gosh.
just was such a shock. I just turned 20 years old. And, I was really injured. I spent a couple of months in the hospital and they almost amputated my right leg. Just a lot of real great miracles happened that saw me through that. And at the end of, that happened in May. In January, I went back to BYU, back to college. And that February, a couple of months later, I got engaged. And so a year after the accident, we were married, my husband and I. So that was kind of fun. We always tell everybody I spent my courtship in bed. Not really, but anyway,
Oh
it
man.
was an amazing time. But I think that's kind of a place where a lot of my trauma with food began, because I had a lot of survivor's guilt. I just traded her places shortly before the accident, and
Oh wow.
I just couldn't figure out why she was gone and I wasn't. And it was just kind of we got married and right away we started having our kids. We had 5 kids in 8 years, and I was always on a diet. Every time I'd get pregnant, I'd gain 50 or 60 pounds. And after the baby was born, I'd get it off and then I'd get pregnant again. And it was just, and I mostly did it with Weight Watchers in those days. And, worked great. Nice people. I was happy. It was going well, but I didn't ever learn how to keep the food off. And I always thought, well, once I've lost the weight, I can eat whatever I want. And so hit my 30s, youngest child was born. And that's when I found a 12-step program. I went to Overeaters Anonymous, and I kind of dabbled in and out with that for about in and off 40s and 50s. When I hit 60 years old, I went to the doctor one day and they said I was diabetic. And it was in February. And I was like, diabetic? How can I be diabetic? And I thought, this is not happening. And so I gift of desperation, I found a stricter version of the 12-step program I've been going to and started in with that. And my high weight was 306 pounds. And that first year in that 12-step program, I found community, I found great support, I found really good people, and I lost 144 pounds. And
Wow.
I kept it off for about 9 years. And I stayed really active in that 12-step program. And, during the 9 years, a lot of things happened, but I never went off course. I was always bright. And their program, their food plan is really similar to Brightline's. And in fact, I kind of dabbled in Brightline the last couple of years I was in this 12-step program thinking, this looks a little more my speed. Anyway, when I did leave that 12-step program, I decided their definition of abstinence, of sobriety, whatever it was refraining from compulsive eating. So I decided that I was going to learn how to just refrain from compulsive eating. And so I joined another group that I paid $60 a month. And it was all about how to intuitively eat and only eat when you're hungry and then stop when you're satisfied. And you make a plan every night, you drink lots of water, you get lots of sleep, but you're just going to follow what you wrote down. And whatever you put on the plan, you can eat it. And then if you eat off plan, you write a discovery sheet about why you ate off plan. Well, I spent the last 2 years writing so many discovery sheets because I was always eating off plan. And I would plan to eat some not my food and think, okay, I'll just have one of those. And one day it hit me when I was, and by now I was kind of bridging both worlds. I was kind of in Brightline. I was listening to more and more of those podcasts and things. And I actually joined for a few months back last year in April or May. And I paid the fee for a few months. And then I thought, oh, I'm not doing anything right. And so I stopped paying, but I still kept listening. And I just found such great community in the Facebook groups that was the most fun thing for me. And anyway, one day I was writing one of those discovery worksheets, and it suddenly occurred to me, this person running this program, I just adore her. She's wonderful, but she's not a compulsive eater. You know, Susan says in her book, there's about a third of people out there that are not compulsive eaters. I'm married to one. My husband's been the same weight my whole married life, 50 years. The guy's never varied. You can set the scale by how much he weighed, you know. And I honestly, it was like a light bulb went off. I thought, okay, it's time for a decision. And I'd got the gift of desperation back. I'd regained back to about 231 pounds. And I thought, I'm going to be 306 pounds again. It's not, I can't stop this. And all of a sudden it just dawned on me again, like it did when I was 6 years old. You really are a compulsive eater, and you really do need to follow a food plan. And Brightline eating just all of a sudden felt really doable. It was just like something clicked in my brain. And it was right after that they were randomly signing up buddies. And I got just the best buddy in the world. Just so much fun. And she and I have kept being buddies after the 2 weeks was over or whatever it is. And it's through that constant connection that I feel like Brightline is working for me again. That and the little, 14-day challenges and the things people are doing. And I think I talked to you the other day about how, my high weight at Brightline was 231. And last time I weighed in at a real weight was 205. So I'm just about back to Wonderland. And I've been there before. And it's so exciting to feel like, this is going to work. This is going to work. So
I want to bring you back a little bit, because you mentioned a couple things that you did. I mean, you did the Weight Watchers, but I just got to say, the Weight Watchers, you mentioned when you were going to Weight Watchers while you were pregnant. Those were the days that they let you.
Yeah, they let you do that. Yeah.
And you actually would lose weight while you were pregnant, right?
Oh, yeah. I joined with my first baby at 5 months, and I weighed, I don't know, 196 or something. And when he was delivered 4 months later, I weighed 162. So I lost weight, and I was at goal, I was 152. I was 162 before he was born and 150 after he was born. So that was going to Weight Watchers. but I ate really healthily. I ate all the food I wanted. I didn't feel like I was really deprived, and he was a healthy little guy. So,
and the question is, did you have gestational diabetes at the time at all?
I did not. I didn't have anything like that. And it does run in my family, and I should have known that was going to happen. Oh, I forgot to tell you, 4 months after I started eating the Brightline Way in my 12-step program, by August, my A1C was normal. I don't know what happened. I got lucky, because I know there are other people who have diabetes who follow Brightline and it hasn't gone into remission, but mine did. And it's been that way ever since. Even with the weight regain, I've been lucky not to get back into it. So anyway, that was good.
And what, at 5'9", what you thought that you was overweight, someone else would maybe not even think you were overweight, which is like back in the day when I thought that I needed to lose weight, all these crazy diets. I put a slide up there called The Long and Winding Road, because of a conversation we had about like the crazy diets that we do.
Oh my gosh.
And yours topped the cake. I had not heard of this at all. I had heard of it. I didn't hear of anybody doing it. So you got to share that.
Oh my gosh. This was something that I think about now. I think, what was I thinking? And it's something that our oldest son always brings up, because at the time, money was really tight. And our oldest son, I think, was 12 or 13. And there were some people in our neighborhood selling some four-wheelers with a trailer. And it would cost $800 for these 2 4-wheelers in this trailer. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Anyway, he he just was dying for us to buy those. What a great deal. And my husband went to him and said, son, I'm sorry, but we've got to help your mom. She's got this thing that she thinks will help her lose weight, and it's going to cost $800. And so my poor son and the rest of the kids, everybody was so disappointed. And mom went off to Salt Lake City to a dentist appointment and got her jaw wired shut. And
My God.
that was supposed to help me lose weight.
Wow.
And what it did was just make life very miserable, because if you opened your mouth too wide like this, the little balls in the back would drop down, and then you couldn't shut your mouth again. So you're just stuck with your mouth like this.
And you sang. So,
oh yeah,
I mean,
I was playing the organ in my church, and I was sitting on the stand, and there was some reason I have to open my mouth, and all of a sudden I was like, I couldn't shut it.
That would be just crazy.
And it only took me about a week to figure out how to get lots of not my food in a straw.
Yeah. I mean, we're smart people. We can figure this out very fast. But yeah, it really is true. The long and winding road, like trying everything, like it's not from lack of trying. And I do really just kind of want to highlight that the program that you got on you said you were in the 12-step, but then this was a stricter 12-step. And Susan's even talked about, it's not the same group that you were in, but that there were groups that
stricter
one. Very strict, that one, no sugar, no flour. Was it 3 meals a day? And weight?
Yeah, 3 meals a day, weighed and measured.
But the difference in yours was that you could have some sugar-free, sugar sweeteners.
Yeah,
right?
They allowed sugar substitutes. So that was kind of a real adjustment for me coming to Brightline. I think that was kind of one of the last things I sort of, pried out of my my gripping hand.
I was going to ask you, that had to be kind of tough to make that adjustment, because you were doing this for 9 years.
I was, and I keep thinking about what was different, and I just loved the people in that group, and I loved the group itself. It just felt like this was the change I needed to make. This just feels a little brighter to me. That was good. A little brighter, little pun there. But it just felt like what I needed to do for me at this time. And there's, in that other program, I just felt a lot of shame. Not that anybody else made me do that. That was just my own thing. I kind of have been learning in Brightline that it's okay to put a heart on the chart instead of an X, and to love myself through a rough day, and to stand back up and do the next best bright meal,
Talk about that just a little bit for someone who's not familiar with the heart on the chart.
Oh yeah, that was a new thing to me, because I'm so black and white thinking. It's always got to be perfect, or it's not good enough. And it's always got to be, exact. If it's 6.1 ounces, you keep cutting off that fruit till it's 6 ounces. I just was very, very OCD with the whole thing while I was in the 12-step. And I saw what happened to other people in my 12-step group. If you did have what they called a slip, you didn't get to speak in a meeting for a week. It was kind of like, you need time to regroup, and we don't want to hear from you when you're crazy. And so it made a lot of sense. But that was the time I felt like I needed the most support. And so someone, I think it was you, got the 100-day chart or whatever. And every day, at the end of the day, always doing the 14-day challenge. And at the end of the day, you got to put a big X on the top of the chart on that day. And I was like, yay, I got another X. Well, there came a day after about 8 X's that I didn't eat right on the dinner meal. We'd gone out to eat and something was off. It was a portion thing. And I didn't weigh and measure. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I heard it from you or somebody that on a day that's not quite as bright, you put a heart, because you love yourself and you matter. And if a friend of mine had had a bad day, I wouldn't say, well, no X for you. Try over, try again, start over. And that's what would happen in the 12-step program I was in. If you had 4 years and 3 days and you had a slip, you were back at day one. And, you started all over again. And for me, you said something the other day, there's only one day one, my journey is progressing down the long and windy road. And it just feels so good to just say, hey, today I'm doing the best I can do.
Right.
And wow, I love being bright.
Well,
bright is fun.
and when we talked the other day, we just were chatting about this whole thing about the heart, because I think it really is an important lesson for us to learn to be kind to ourselves. And sometimes we do have maybe bad days, or just not what we expected. We don't go in wanting to mess up. And I brought up, like, you're married 50 years. There wasn't 50 years of 100% great days. There were sad days, emotional days, hopefully a lot of happy days, and hopefully a lot of the best days ever. But in between, there were some, I know I can speak for myself, things that I wasn't happy about, my husband wasn't happy about, sometimes that I'd say, I don't want to talk about this, but I trust us enough to get through this and talk about this. And those are those days that really, when you look back, because you had the strength to talk about it, like you say, not being able to talk in the meeting. That's one thing about our community. We can go to our community. If that community is even that one buddy, we can go and say, you know what? I really did not have a good afternoon. Like, this happened, you're one-on-one, and you just tell them, you know what? I really need help here. And it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
This is the time we need to talk.
This is the time we need somebody to say, you're going to be all right. You're going to make it. It's going to be fine. And I love your analogy about the marriage, because it's really true. There are a lot of dim days in a 50-year marriage, but they're days that taught me something. And that's kind of what I try to do on my little charts where I've got a heart. I try to learn about what happened and maybe figure out how I can prepare for that better the next time, or what I can do differently. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's good to learn from your hearts.
Okay, so there's another topic that I want to bring up, because you made it through breast cancer.
Yes.
You're a cancer survivor. And didn't you say that even like the medicine itself was difficult to, you were in that one group at the time, right? And that caused like a weight gain kind of thing?
Yeah, the kind of medication I take was a hormone suppressing. And the doctor said, you're going to gain 10 to 20 pounds easily with this. And I thought, oh, he just said that, so I think I have to do it, so I won't. And I did, and eating the same food that I was always eating. And it kind of was really frustrating to me, because it was like being thrown back into menopause all over again. I was having night sweats and I was just dying. And I felt like no one believed me, and no one took into consideration the fact that this medicine, everybody gains weight on this, Mm-hmm. And I finally, after 3 years, asked my doctor if I could go off of it. And he said, well, informed decision, it's your choice, but I think you'd be smart to stay on. And I said, but I just need my life back, because for me, that medication was really a difficult thing. But I think the hardest thing was the person who was my sponsor, who really was a kind, wonderful person. I just don't think she understood what it was like for me to have her keep saying, well, you must be doing something wrong. Well, and there was a stricter segment of the diet for the first 30 days. And she kept putting me back on the first 30 days for like 6 months. I'd be on the first 30 days strict part and lose a pound or two. And then I go and add back in a grain or something. And I start to gain. And she said, okay, back on the first 30 days. I can't.
That had to be extremely a roller coaster of emotions.
It was.
And
it really was.
I think a lot of people are going through that, like when they're getting on a medication. Even like myself, with having gone through shingles, there's so much inflammation, at one point. It's like, I was doing so well. Why is the weight creeping up? Well, then it's like, duh, I'm full of
Yeah.
information. And so
Yeah.
again, it's like be kind to yourself a little bit and understand that you're going through a medical, situation here. And, that's again a great reason to have a buddy who can just, help you through going through stuff. So hopefully you're completely in remission and you're doing well. You
I'm
have
doing really well. They tracked me for one more year, well, a year and a half, and everything's looking fine. And I'm just really grateful to have things back to normal a little bit. But it did really do a number on me psychologically. They have all kinds of help for people that are going through cancer, and I just like, whatever. I I didn't do it. So note to self, avail yourself of the help that's out there because we
yeah,
don't have to do it all on our own. We really don't.
no, we don't. And Deb says sugar feeds cancer too, so all the more reason to stay bright.
Oh yeah.
And sugar feeds inflammation. And I can't even imagine if I had been eating sugar like the way I used to with going through shingles. It's just
Ah,
not a time that you want to feed any inflammation either. So there's
no.
all the reasons to stay bright. So you got in the group, but then you just stayed with, I mean, when I say group, you like did not boot camp, but you did the official, right, for a few months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
I paid the
you,
joining fee and I did the month thing and I did a bunch of podcasts, whatever they were, a bunch of modules. I can't remember now. But I thought it was great. I loved it all. I have not read the Resume book, but once I stopped paying the monthly fee, I was just like, oh, you failed at this too, and so I kind of kept watching Brightline and being on the Facebook and things, but the Facebook and I couldn't. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I couldn't. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I just couldn't string together more than 2 or 3 days, and so it took a decision to stop straddling both worlds, stop thinking that I could figure out how to just eat whatever I wanted in moderation, because that's not who I am. And I had to figure that out all over again. So it was about, July, August that I figured that out and stopped paying the money to the other group and just jumped all in with Brightline.
wow,
And
that
that's
is
when I started busy.
really two different worlds, intuitive eating
I know.
and I don't want to say restrictive, but definitely straight boundaries.
Boundaries for sure. And that's what I
Um,
need, otherwise I'm just crashing off the mountain every second. I proved myself for the last 2.5 years that I cannot eat just one. What do they say in the 12 step? One is one too many and one more is never enough. That's exactly how I am with not my food. So I'm better with none than some for sure. I believe that.
so if somebody was following you around, what would they say? This is how Ruth does her program. How would it work for you?
Oh, I'm not a real good habit stacker. I'm kind of distractible. And I have kind of gotten into a good routine that most evenings I write down my plan. But if I'm really tired, I write it down the next morning. But I make sure before I eat, I have texted my plan to my buddy. And so that's kind of a real game changer for me is I don't just willy-nilly go into the day and say, well, I know the right things, I'll do it. I have a plan what I'm going to do. And I don't save them. I put them on my phone in my notes, but I don't have a little notebook or anything. I should probably have that. So be easier to look back. But um, I'll I send my food plan first thing. And then I usually spend a little time, reading in some spiritual literature and things. And I do try to exercise. I've been having kind of a on off night walk. I'm not talking exercise like go do a huge class or something, but just get some movement in, something that's nice and relaxing. I try to do that. And my husband and I are retired and we love to travel and we have a lot of grandkids around. close by in our area. So we do a lot of things with our family. And most days, like today is my granddaughter Grace's 18th birthday, and that's really fun. And most days we don't eat breakfast until around 9 or 10. And my husband loves to eat out. So we eat out a lot for lunch. And I have to really plan around that and make sure that I've got something that will work with where he wants to go. And usually it works out really well. Yesterday we went to a place that I just took all my food because there wasn't anything there that would, that I could add something to.
You actually brought the food to the restaurant?
Yeah.
They let you do that?
It's just a fast food place. So we went in and sat down. So I snuck around the corner, sat there with my bowl of salad. But yeah, I've never tried it.
I was really doing a lot by bringing a little tea bag.
Oh, I'll tell you, I've never tried it in an actual nice restaurant. I have to see if that happens. I don't know, but I will do lunch and then we'll usually go run some errands. Or lately, we're going to the doctor. I had my wrist operated on a week ago, so just things, odds and ends, things to do. Go to a movie. I love that. And what I really love to do most of all is go on a trip. And it used to be, if I went on a trip, I could count on gaining 10 pounds every single time. And now with Brightline, I always have to wait a week because I will gain about 5 pounds water weight just traveling around, no matter if I'm flying or driving. So I wait about a week when I get home. And this time I forgot and waited and thought, but it didn't throw me because I know how things go for me. But we like to take trips. We like to go to movies. We like to hang out with friends. We like to, I don't know, go on nice long drives up in the mountains. And all of our grandkids ski. So we go up and watch them. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And you also,
basketball games.
The other day you were saying too, that you kind of, when you are home and not going out for lunch, that you make a point to make your lunch a little bit after breakfast. Is that right?
Exactly. I forgot I told you that. When breakfast is done, it helps me so much just to go in and look what I've written down and get it fixed and put in the fridge ready to go. And I really admire people who can prep food like a whole week in advance. My son has done that. He's done really well. But I just prep mine day by day. After lunch, if we're going to be home that night, I'll just make my dinner meal and put it in the fridge and be ready to go. Because then I've got no excuses. I can't say, I'm too tired. And so, it really helps to have it all ready.
To me, that has probably been the one habit that I learned from Shauna Murph when she was on Starting Out Bright. And she does the full week, full breakfast, full lunch, full dinner. The same for each breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the week. But there is a reason, and it's to have neutrality. Instead of saying, ooh, breakfast cookies. Oh, I'm having, So you're not having the oohs and ahs of each day.
Yeah.
And so you're not looking at food as like a treat, really.
Yeah, food just as fuel.
Yeah, but for me, I need variety. And so just to pack breakfast and lunch, sometimes I'll do it for 2 days, but it's packed for tomorrow. And I can't even tell you how much peace that is. But I'm not perfect. The other day, I knew that I was going to be working from home. And I thought, I can handle this. I know what I'm having for breakfast. I'll wing it for lunch. You know what? If you ever hear me say I'm going to wing it, I'm going to sit down and pay attention.
How's that working out for you?
You know what happens? Number one, what's really funny is I don't get hungry till like 1:00 in the afternoon. I mean, I really just don't, because I'm not even thinking about food. Like, who could ever imagine that?
I know.
1:00, then I was hungry, and I mosey on over to the refrigerator, and it's just, this is too much time. Too much time. It's taken 10 minutes to put this thing together. And by then I've gone and gotten a handful of something, and, it's not good. Fortunately, the next right thing was dinner, but just from not packing my lunch. So I can't even tell you how strongly I recommend that. There was a comment in the chat from Irene, and I really loved what she said. She says, I like to think of it as structured instead of restricted. I can live with structure.
Structured is a great word.
It
I like
really
that.
is. And that is kind of like the breakfast and lunch. Packed, it's structured, it's in the refrigerator, it's ready to go. That's just the funny thing is, back in the day when I was on the long and winding road of my Richard Simmons or macros or carbs or calories or whatever, my mind was constantly thinking about food. What was I going to have? How many calories, carbs, all these different things. It
How
was
many points?
nonstop. Where yet here the breakfast and lunch is packed and I'm not thinking about food. How can that be possible?
It's such a beautiful freedom.
It is truly an amazing thing. And I wanted to ask you too, did you feel like you had automaticity when you had allowed sugar-free substances? Did you still
It
feel
worked.
automaticity?
It worked okay for me. I think the 2.5, 3 years I took off in between the 12-step program and getting in a bright line really messed with my automaticity because I was just in a groove, in the 12-step program. And it didn't really bother me if I did have artificial sweeteners. But once I hit bright line eating and I knew that that was something they didn't recommend and I was doing it anyway, that really messed with my head. I was like, okay, you're going to do this, or you're not going to do this. This is the requirement. And yeah, I did struggle with that at first, but I'm doing way better with it.
I'm going to say something kind of controversial, which is
Hooray.
I actually follow the book. And so the book says that if it's not in the first three ingredients, it's okay. Now, I didn't even know that there was like all this debate out there about having, like, let's say there was rice flour and it's number 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it, that was a debate, or that there was an artificial substance, the 10th, like for example, fiber 1. I think it's like the 10th ingredient. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that there was even a debate about it because I was following the book and I didn't get a memo that said the book changed. And so I'm still following the book. Now, the exception to that is that, there are 50 names for sugar at least. So
Oh, yeah.
if there's dextrose and maltose and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like that's a no-go. But if there's something like number 10 and you've got good substances all the way down, I'm following the book. I mean, I think that's okay. But you have to do your own research. I just wondered, since the program that you were on before actually allowed it, how much that messed with you.
Those 9 years, I didn't have a problem with it at all. And that's been kind of my hard thing now with giving up some things, is like, what? So yeah, I like what you said, third or lower. So 1, 2, 3, number 4, there it is, right?
Yeah. So someone asked, the book changed to what? The book didn't change. The book is still saying that if it's not in the first 3 ingredients, it's okay. But as Deb says, the rule now, it doesn't say this in the book, but the rule now is if it's sweet, if it's messing with your peace, basically, right? If it can still trigger an insulin response, no matter where it is in the ingredients. And I think that if it triggers you, period,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to get away with this, then it's probably a no-go.
Yeah.
But as Susan
Exactly.
Cruz Thompson says, everybody has to do their own research. And so, I thought it's about time to bring this topic up for debate, because there's just been sometimes food police, and I totally understand they don't want people to fall in the ditch by getting sucked into like, oh, it's sugar-free, but yeah, there's 7 sugar-free substances in there. You know, they do that to trick you, right? It's like, wow, this is awfully sweet. Well, if you look at the list, there are 50 sugar-free, and the sugar feels like 50 times greater than, you know, a regular sugar substance. So anyway, all of that to say, the book still says it's the 4th or later ingredient and you can go. So anyway, you are now traveling a lot more. What have been some of the non-scale victories that you have been able to enjoy? I mean, look at you from 306 pounds. Ruth, that's gotta just been such a change in your life. I mean, truly.
It was huge. It really was huge. It was like a rebirth. And one of the most fun, exciting, it still excites me every time I get on a plane and I can click that seatbelt. I still remember when I had to ask for the seatbelt extension. And in those days, you couldn't buy your own because, you know, we weren't smart enough to do it then. But I had to ask, and the flight attendant was really kind. She came over and kind of slipped it to me. And then I couldn't figure out how to make it work. And I was just, the plane was taking off and she's looking at me and I'm still trying to hook it together. And that was just the most mortifying thing. And I remember going with some friends to a movie, and the movie seats that we went to the theater, they weren't the big, nice, luxurious one. I was in pain. My hips were jammed against that seat, and I just thought I was going to die. I couldn't even enjoy the movie. And the first time I sat down, there's a big basketball arena close by, the Marriott Center, and they've got little teeny, well, they used to have little teeny yellow chairs. You could not fit in those if you were overweight at all. And I remember just hitched up sideways on the armrest and just things like that, you know, being able to climb in and out of a car easily and being able to go up and down stairs and just not have the pain. It was just so many things. So fun to go shopping. It's just, you know, I always bought whatever was, you know, big enough and on sale and black or navy blue. It couldn't be a color because, you know, you have to fade into the background. And that's all I ever wore. It just had to be big enough. And I had the ugliest clothes. And it's so much fun as you go down the sizes. And I like to shop at thrift stores a lot. I think that's kind of fun just to find a good deal, you know. In fact, one of the after pictures that you've got in the slideshow, the suit picture with the little cowl neckline, that was a thrift store find.
Oh, I love that picture. The black and white.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
that's
that was
beautiful.
it's so much fun. It just, and when you're going downsizing, you don't want to invest a whole bunch of money in your wardrobe. Thrift store is the best way to do it. But yeah, those are the non-scale victories. Sitting in a booth in a restaurant, you know, you always had to get a table because you couldn't fit into the booth. So
exactly.
Yeah, just lots of fun things. Wearing a bathing suit at the hotel pool or on the beach. You know, it's just totally different. I'm not embarrassed to death, and I'm not ashamed of myself, and I'm not trying to hide in a big thing. And it's great, and
Well,
I'm
I love the
excited to
picture of you
do
with
that.
your husband dancing.
Oh, that was so fun! And here's something so funny: our youngest son got married, and his bride's father was the dean of dance at the university nearby.
Yeah.
And so when we did the father of the bride dance with the mother of the groom, I was 295 pounds. He is twirling me around, and I tried to move with it, and it was so mortifying and so horrible. And then when I lost all the weight, and we were at our niece's wedding reception, and we were dancing, it was just magical. I thought, oh yay, I can dance. It's fun.
It's
Yeah.
It's so amazing. I would agree, like the whole auditorium thing. Like, you know, and you have 20 some grandchildren. So if you're going to one of their events, you know, you're going into some kind of auditorium, and I noticed the faces. Like before, when I would be at the end of the row and I've got to get in, you know.
Everybody's groaning.
Yeah, they're like, well, standing up to like get out and let me in. Where now it's like they're nonchalant, like not even looking at me, like it's just a person getting in. And I'm thinking, this is so weird. Like turnstiles in a sports event where, you
Oh,
have to go
yeah.
through the little thing
Oh,
and I'm like
yeah.
hoping I
Subway.
didn't get stuck, you know, like seriously. And now you just go through. It's really, I mean, there's just so much. And the medical benefits, like you've had, right?
Oh, yeah. Just amazing. And you were talking to me the other night about what would you tell someone who's looking at bright light eating, and I was really thinking about that, and I thought, it's all about the promises, the things that she says in the book will really help you, and change your life. And the one of them that really stuck out to me was, um, you can make it through any given day by sticking to your bright lines. You just have to plan ahead and recruit lots of support. Everyone in your Brightline community is going to be facing down the same challenge at the same time. We've got you. I loved that one. And this one says, it is possible to stick with the bright lines for years and years, no matter what life dishes up. And the last one I thought was really good was, the cravings will go away. I promise. I promise they go away. Oh, and you sent me that podcast that I said I really liked. What was that?
Intermittent reinforcement.
Right. That was a really good podcast for me, because I realized in my little break from my 12-step group that I was in that I lost 144 pounds. And in finding my way to Brightline, I'd been pushing that lever over and over and over again. And I got my brain back to really in a non-extinguished mode. I would just push that thing 10,000 times, because I knew eventually I would give in and give myself something. So, all I saw, the promises for Brightline eating, the science of happy, thin, and free. It was on one of the groups, and it's 2 pages, and it's got page 55, page 103, page 125. So I'll send this to Noreen, and maybe she can post it or something.
Okay, we can post it in the Starting Out Bright group. So
Yeah.
you're reading those from the book. Those are pages 50.
Yeah, that's what every promise cites a page, 224, 229, 235. Yeah, front and back. I thought I found it on Starting Out Bright, but maybe it was another group. Anyway, it's a great compilation of all the promises.
You know what? It's so good to hear those promises again, because the one that really sticks out to me is the cravings. I never in a million years thought that I would come to a day that I'm fine with my little BLE muffin at my desk. Which,
Yeah,
remember, I say, oh, I'm having oats and fruit and some nut butter and some spices and an egg in here. I mean,
that's what I say about my cookies.
I look at these because I had to tell them that it's not a muffin. Like I'm eating breakfast. I'm eating what is allowed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to be a treat, but I never in a million years thought that I would prefer it at some point, until a day that somebody came around with a box of not my food, sweet, and I literally just smiled, because here I had mine, because I eat breakfast around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Here I had mine, and they were all going to have that, and I actually preferred what I was going to have. I remember what that stuff tastes like. I haven't forgotten that. But what I enjoyed so much was, I love what the muffin itself, but I love the piece that I have. The craving had truly gone away. I didn't crave what was in that box, where before I would have gotten up 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Oh, yeah.
In one day. And as Deb says, hope is attainable and BLE is sustainable. Absolutely.
Yep. And we are unstoppable.
As we're closing off on this, do you have any last words before we go?
I wrote this down because my oldest son, who's turning 50 this summer, said this to me when he was 12 years old. The reason most people fail is because they give up what they want most for what they want now. And I thought, okay, what I want most is to have food freedom, to have all the chatter gone, to have no more pushing that lever, to have the joy that comes from sticking with bright lines. So that's what I wanted to say. Last words. Don't quit before your miracle. Um, Keep coming back. And I honestly believe that the whole 12-step theory that Susan talks about, I really did have to decide that I am a compulsive eater and be okay with that and say, because I'm okay, because there's a solution, there's a way out. And I really believe that bright line eating is the way back to my right size body.
Yeah. And you are back on your way, even after a little blip. You're going down,
Yeah,
you're going to hit Wonderland again. And
I know. So excited.
that is so fantastic. So you're already still 100 pounds down. And,
Right, right.
and you have found your hearts. Your hearts have found you, and you've given your
That just makes me so happy because that's what's made the difference is I found the love in this community. And not to say I didn't have it in the 12-step groups, but it's just so supportive. And I just love that everybody's on the same page and everybody's pulling for everybody else. It's great.
absolutely leave nobody behind.
That's
So,
right.
so with that, I'm going to close as I do each week. Good night. Stay bright. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much.
Good
Ruth.
night.
So, Ruth, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
I don't know. Do I get to pick a card?
Well, that would probably be a good idea because I never know what I'm going to ask you. Okay, so I want to go back to the food prep thing because you did say
Okay.
you do prep for the next meal and then the next meal, like one at a time. And I love that.
Yeah.
But do you prep certain foods ahead of time so that you're ready to do the next meal? I know you do the breakfast cookies, which is, if you can quickly share that recipe.
All the breakfast cookies are so easy. And depending on how many really ripe bananas I have, you just, multiply it and divide the right amount of cookies. But this time I had enough to make 3 bananas. So I made 3 smashed bananas, 3 ounces of chopped walnuts, and 3 ounces of oats. And I add a little baking powder, a little baking soda, and a little salt, and some cinnamon. But then you just make those into 9 cookies, and then you've got your 3 oatmeal breakfast servings. And I can keep those in the freezer and grab them out, take them with me. When we went to Southern Utah last weekend, I took 4 packages. So every morning I just had my oatmeal and bananas and walnuts ready to go. And I didn't have to worry about breakfast while we were there.
But
So
no,
that's one thing I do.
aren't you short a half a protein on that?
Oh yeah, I'll have a string cheese with it or a boiled egg or something.
Or you can
Yeah,
have a boiled egg. Yeah, perfect. Well, that will
Yeah.
account for question number 1. So, all right.
Okay.
So what are we going to do for the rest then? What are you prepping ahead of time? Anything for your vegetables or
My
protein?
vegetables, I'm pretty lazy. I will get a head of cabbage and a bag of carrots, and I'll chop that up and cook it. And then I'll do a lot of things where I've got my cabbage and carrots and onions and celery, and I'll just plop some shredded chicken on top and call it dinner. I asked my buddy I send my food to. It's kind of boring. I just do it. But I'm trying to get so I will do more variety with my vegetables, like having corn and green beans and squash instead of just 10 ounces of spinach. So, but I stick with easy things. I grab a bag of coleslaw mix and I will stir fry that and crack an egg on top and throw on some cashews and boom, you've got a nice little stir fry dinner.
That sounds pretty amazing. I've
It's
never
delicious.
done that.
Yeah, the cocoa aminos, I'll send you
What?
that recipe. That's good.
Cocoa
And
aminos?
cocoa aminos, are those the things we can use that are sugar free? I can't remember. I use them like a condiment kind of thing. But I'll look on and see.
Okay,
That's
well,
like
wait a minute. So we've got
wait.
Coconut
coleslaw.
aminos.
Pardon? We
Is
have coleslaw.
Coconut aminos.
yeah.
Aminos. We have aminos. This is liquid, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And it just kind of
Like soy
flavors
sauce.
it. It makes it taste like Chinese food. It just
wow.
flavors it really. Yeah, it's good
The
stuff.
things I learn on starting out bright.
Oh, and I'll put my tablespoon of sesame oil in there to stir fry the coleslaw mix. So, I
So,
just do easy things. I put a couple of butternut squash in the microwave and cook those and scrape it all out and have it ready to go. And I will cut up a jicama and make French fries out of a jicama in my air fryer. That's kind of fun. And oh, thank you, Wendy, for explaining that.
coconut amino. It tastes like soy sauce. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's really good, but there's no sugar in it. It's just,
Okay.
anyway, it's a good thing. What's something else I do? Oh, here's my easiest, and this probably just sounds nasty to people, but I'm just great to get a can of black beans and a can of chopped up tomatoes and dump them all in a bowl, weigh them, of course, and put in a little salsa and use sour cream for my fat and just have a nice bowl of beans and tomatoes and salsa. It's a fast meal. And I love, everybody's all standby the rotisserie chicken and shred that up. I have my chicken in little packages weighed out. So that's handy to do.
Well, that little dish that you're talking about, you could travel with that.
Oh, for sure. And this is me old school, I love a tuna fish, cucumber, and chopped apple salad with mayo for the dressing. And that's a real standby. I do that a lot because it's easy to take an apple and a can of tuna fish and a cucumber with you when you travel, when we go through security, they're always fighting all my stash of all my things. Like, you got a cucumber in this suitcase? I say, yes, I do.
Wow. We just got to get used to that. And we're just got to make our way. Like,
that's right.
This is the new normal, people. We're going to eat well and we're going to pack ahead of time. So here's my final question. What is the resource? It could be a book, mantra, anything that you would recommend to anybody else that you have found on this journey, besides the book of Bright Light?
Yeah. I think probably my most helpful resource are the big books, the 12-step, the food for thought. They have all kinds of little books that you can read daily. I also love a scripture resource, to read daily from scriptures. I think probably my favorite resource of all is for me to just be able to pray every day and ask for God's help to make this work. And when I'm struggling, not be afraid to text somebody or call somebody, because it was my isolation that got me into this mess. But I got to make sure I don't make that same mistake again. So,
somebody, actually, Nikki Giroux, who I interviewed a long time ago, she told me this from the 12 steps. There was a mantra that was, you're only as sick as your secrets. And that really speaks to isolation. And I believe that's true. So when you are, when you're in that ditch, when you are isolating, it's at the time you don't want to talk about it that really is the time that you need to do something. And if you can't talk about it, maybe journal about it, at least go, out and do something. Here, I want to point this out about the coconut aminos. It's made from coconut sap sugar, so technically it's not compliant. So here is what I would say. If
it's the fifth ingredient.
If it's the fifth ingredient, we might be able to get away with it technically from the book, but I do see that. And for someone who that may feel like it's triggered, exactly, Ruth. If you're triggered with anything, I brought up, I don't know if I could make the breakfast cookies. There's a reason why in 3.5 years I have not had regular NMF cookies. It's the shape of them.
I'll make them square.
Yeah, there you go. Just, I don't know what it is. There's something about it. So
I have done the same recipe.
To be a trigger,
I've done the same recipe and just cooked it in a sprayed bowl in the microwave. And, it's probably like a little muffin or something, cake.
And that works too.
Yeah, if muffin makes you feel better, do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
whatever makes you feel better.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh,
and I didn't know about your sister. I'm so sorry for your loss. I know that's a long time ago, but you always have your sister close at heart. So my sympathy on that tragedy. Um,
thank you. It's very
and,
kind.
thank you so much for everything you've shared tonight, your story, your information. You're just wonderful person to get to know. I'm so glad that our paths have crossed. And
Oh,
thank you so much for playing Three Question Thursday.
okay. And you have to tell them how last night I thought I slept through this whole thing. So,
So, okay, I get a call like I'm in bed 11:30 and Ruth is just so sad and crying almost because she thought she missed the whole interview. So here we
I
are. We
fell
made it.
asleep and I woke up in a panic. I'm like, oh, it's 9:30. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Luckily it was only Wednesday.
Yes. Well, thank goodness. Thank you so much. And thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good
Oh, good
night.
night. Thanks,
Stay
Doreen.
bright.
Thank you. Bye-bye.